We
Can?
good.
Okay. Okay, super. So,
Yeah.
so I am speaking to J.T. Lewis, who is one of the members of the Harriet Tubman Band, and they're going to be here in the San Francisco Bay at Yoshi's in Oakland next week. It's going to be really exciting. Next week, October 26th.
Is it 20?
Yeah,
I'm not
26th,
sure.
Thursday. It's a Thursday. You're like a week and a day from today. Today's
Okay.
Wednesday. And and it's gonna be really cool because they haven't played here, gosh, since 2020. Like that was a
I
heck of a long time ago.
know. But COVID had a lot to do with it too. It
Of
really
course,
slowed,
of course.
you know. And I think we did the San Francisco Jazz Festival
Yes.
somewhere between that. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, we haven't been. I don't. I haven't played in Yoshi's in years, so it'll
Hmm.
be. I'm looking forward to coming back. You know.
Right. Yeah. It should be really cool. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Harriet Tubman, as the lead in this ensemble, like Harriet Tubman Band. I mean, that's really
Well,
significant. Yeah.
yeah,
And
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 that's interesting
I
you
just
say that.
brought her along, here she is.
Oh yeah, I have a
And
picture of that I have a
yeah.
picture of that in the hallway of my house right now. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
But
I've got her here too. I got her in a couple of places. So I just took her off my altars and brought her so she could join us.
she's part of our altar, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, we started making music and like trying to create a certain sound, and her name just popped up in one of my dreams. Her name just popped up because it's about freedom, and we hold on to that standard like fiercely, you know, and we don't have a lane that we drive in. We keep our musical experience, all of our musical experiences, as a template to do whatever we want to do with it. So it could be like if I was playing with Ornette Coleman or Don Pullen, or my rock influences as I playing, Sting and Lou Reed. But all of that information is up for you know to use it, and we have these experiences that sometimes you get in a certain musical business environment, and you're supposed to stay in this little narrow, well, I do this and you no, we don't ascribe to that. We ascribe to freedom,
Mm-hmm.
freedom of thought, and not only the musicians but the audience as well. I notice the audience sometimes gets intimidated to think for themselves, you know, to think freely. And this environment is about freedom, just being
Mm-hmm.
free. It's okay to think for yourself. It's okay to, I mean, it's totally, I think people forget that part, that, yeah, they can think for themselves. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And when they hear us, they go, oh, wow, okay. This is okay. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you guys aren't supposed to sound like that. Well, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. You know, and so we're trying to free people up. I mean, Harriet is still working. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Harriet is still working. That's cool. I
she's
like
still
that.
working.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's what I thought too. When I was just thinking about your band, I was thinking, wow, so where would the stations be now? And who would be the collaborators and the allies now? And where is, what's the North Star now? And where are we moving to? Are we moving at all, like physically, or is it another
Yeah.
kind of movement?
Well, sometimes you have to push people you know, like you have to nudge them to say, oh, wait a minute, you got to wake up, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
yes. And we've had problems um, over these, over the decades that we've been together, of radio stations and record labels trying to label us, you know, and because there's these lanes that you're supposed to be in, and I live by the fact that you know my whole 40 years of playing music with all kinds of different people, from Tina Turner to Henry Threadgill to Whitney Houston, to all of that music means something to me, and I have to have a place to express myself, you know, and we have to create our own lane. And I noticed that people have a problem with that. I mean, it's changing slowly but surely, but you have to like live, and that's how she lived. You have to believe in yourself and what you're trying to accomplish, and people will follow later.
Mm-hmm.
Now because the name of the band came up by accident, actually. We were playing and rehearsing new music and trying to do things, and trying to do new stuff. And the guys called me. They said, Jay, what do you think? Because they call me, because I name all the songs. I guess I have that talent. And they go, well, what do you think we should? What do you think we should call the band? And I said, it just came out. I said Harriet Tubman, and they looked at me like, you know, and it was like an epiphany, and it just came out like that, and they were like, and they liked it. They were like, oh, okay, yeah, I like that, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how it started. That's how it started,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, great. We are.
Melvin
Oh,
on.
super. Yeah. Mr. Gibbs, Melvin, good to see you.
Oh, same
Are
here.
you in Europe?
I'm in Glastonbury, England right now.
Yeah. What time is it there?
It's 5 hours later,
Okay.
so
It's
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 9:42,
quarter to 11 p.m.
Okay.
quarter quarter to 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah,
So we were just talking about Harriet Tubman,
mm,
the inspiration, the name of your band, and sort of, how you came to that, and just sort of talking about your music and your creativity, and how you all, I hadn't asked this question yet, but how you all, came together, the three of you, in 1998. I was reading that um, it was formed by all of you together.
yeah,
And I heard from Mr. Lewis that you all talk anyway, like you all get together and you talk. Um, you know, so you already had a um, uh, a relationship, so to speak.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we knew each other musically through different circles over the years,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, through different situations. Uh, JT and I had played together in you know a funk band that was very important in New York in the early '80s. I played with Brandon, with the great jazz saxophonist named Oliver Lake. We played together with him,
Nice.
and Brandon had his own groups, and kind of that was like in the '80s, and towards the '90s, everything I kind of went off into rock and roll basically for the '90s, and I was in a whole different world than them for a while, and it just so happened that we the rock group that I was in was rehearsing in the same rehearsal complex that Brandon and JT were rehearsing with one of the great jazz musicians of America, a man named Henry Threadgill, who's won the Pulitzer Prize. Uh,
Yes.
they were rehearsing with him in
Mm-hmm.
one studio, and I was rehearsing with the rock band that I was in at the time, a man named Henry Rollins.
Yeah.
I was rehearsing with him in another studio, and they decided they wanted to play, and the two of them played, and JT, you know, asked Brandon, if you knew, a bass player, and you know, I happened to be there. So there you go. So that's how that started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
we share a lot of, there's a lot of crossover between what the three of us done over the decades. So it was kind
Mm-hmm.
of a natural fit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when one thinks about Harriet Tubman, actually, I was in Auburn this summer, and got a chance to visit her home, that her husband rebuilt after the other one burned down.
Yes.
And I got a chance to go by the church that um, the National Park Service has refurbished so that it can be, uh, people can visit it. And
Yeah.
and so I think it reopened this fall. I wasn't there this fall. I was there this summer, but I got a chance to go in. I didn't have on my hard hat, but everybody else had on theirs, and just
Wow.
see where she worshiped, because I think she paid like $25 to have it built. I mean, it was like people collected money, and that's where her home going took place. But just being on that land in Auburn, like all that land is a lot of land. It
A
was
lot.
so awesome. And then going by the church where she and her husband,
Mhm.
Mr. Davis, were married. And
Yeah.
so the whole idea, like, Harriet Tubman band. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I was just at the place. And then I went to Ontario,
Yeah.
to the church where she worshiped with her family before she
Yeah.
moved everybody, to back
Yeah.
to the US. And
Mm.
and then being able to go inside of that wonderful sort of convalescent home, that she ended up spending the last, I guess, year or so of her life. They took care of her. Like, she had been taking care of people all her life. And then
Yeah.
going in Auburn and seeing where she used to sell her produce, and she had her pigs. And I mean, the woman was like amazing.
Yeah. She
So
really did.
yeah, and then so, like, for you all to take the name, I'm like, you all are amazing. I mean, individually you are amazing, like all the work, all the people that you played with, and then it's like you come together under one heading, under one roof, and you just do Harriet Tubman. It's like, whoa. So talk to me about sort of like the spirit or the thread that runs through for you, connected to the tissues of the other musicians in your ensemble.
Well, first of all, here's another thing too. We named the band after a woman, and we've noticed that we've come into some issue. Like, people are surprised that there's no woman singer in the band. you know, but the image of and the overall energy that Harriet Tubman had is something that is important to us. And it's a slogan that we came up with, like, don't be a slave to nothing. Like, think for yourself. And the audience is included in this as well. And we're learning that the audience is learning how to trust themselves when they hear us. They go, oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay. You know, and it's part of her legacy, you know, and it's like that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's basically it's almost like it's a mantra in a sense. It's like, okay, you need to we try to bring. I mean, hopefully I'm not overstating this, but I mean, for me, it's a question of the name means to bring that kind of energy in the room. That's kind of
Yeah.
about freedom,
Hmm.
and it's also about a commitment, because in those days, she used to carry a gun with her, and it was kind of like, for whoever decided they didn't want to be free, she'd be like, you're gonna be free. You can choose how you're gonna be free now. You know,
I ain't taking no
yeah,
for an answer. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
So you're gonna be free one way or another, right? So that's kind of how you know we we I don't put it another way. As far as what we do musically, that's the energy we carry. It's kind of like, yeah, people want to categorize it, and we've kind of fallen into because of our history and because it's black creative music, it gets subsumed under jazz.
Hmm.
But it's really, in the words of the great group art ensemble in Chicago. I really called it, at this point, I call it GBM, great, which is short for Great Black Music, which is the phrase that the art ensemble uses. Great Black Music, ancient to the future.
Right.
And really, that's where we're coming from. There's no dividing line between if it's something that people think is going to be rock or something that your grandma would like. It's all going to be in there. Something that y'all would think is, somebody might be like, wow, that's real arty, next to something that's real concrete. So that's how the name relates to what we do, and it's hopefully at its best, it's an homage to that. I also want to mention that we haven't, you mentioned this on stage. We haven't mentioned it so much in the interview. Another big inspiration for the group is Swami Turya Sangeetananda, Alice Coltrane, and that and her coming from that tradition, of what Coltrane was doing with freedom, and her taking that and bringing it back to something that was like comfort for the people and comfort for the community. That's also a very important part of, of the energy we try to invoke and evoke when we're playing.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your creative process. How do you all, make the music together? Like, how do you start? And Mr. Lewis said that he names the songs, but how do you go
Most
from
of them.
idea to song?
Well, he names a lot of them. Yeah. I mean,
but also the
some,
stream, like we learned, from the mentors that we've played with, from Henry to Ornette, and there's this musical stream that we can kind of connect to, and then we go from there. So I don't know if you want to call it reverse writing or what, but we create and then we write. We don't write and create. At least that's the way I see it.
Yeah. I mean,
and it comes from that stream.
Once in a while, either Brandon or myself will prepare something ahead of time to bring to the band, but even when we do that, it's really about what happens in the room. And the majority of what we do is spontaneous composition. We sit down and we play and we turn it into music.
Oh wow,
that comes from the mentors, because I'll never forget, like when I was coming up, I was playing with Don and I was playing with these cats, and they would tell me, they were like, trust what's coming to you, trust it, because that's what it is. Don't think twice about it, just let it come in and then do something with it. And the geniuses like Ornette and Henry Threadgill, these guys who could take that energy stream and put it on paper, and really stay focused on what that stream is, and I came through the music business playing a lot of pop music, but I also learned from jazz musicians as a drummer. So I had a connection to that stream, of energy that was coming. And when you put it together with your colleagues that think the same way, interesting stuff happens. Yeah.
It's Brandon.
Oh yeah.
People, hey.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Ross? Good to see you.
I'm doing okay. Nice to see you, Wanda.
Good to see you too. So you're like, are you home? Are you in transit? Because I heard you were like on the bridge.
I was, yeah. I just walked in the door.
Okay.
Getting sorted out here.
Okay. Well,
but I'm glad you had my colleagues. I'm sure they kept you busy.
Oh yeah. I was, yeah. And just, the ancestor, that we call whenever we say the name of the band, Harriet Tubman, she's keeping me busy. Yeah.
So
we've been talking about, the spirit of Tubman. We've been talking about how you all make music together, your creative process. We've been talking about sort of your lineage, sort of like, you are a child of whom, a child of whom, a child of whom, like who carried you here, right? And so,
Right.
yeah, so you can jump in wherever you like.
All right. I'll see who's going. I heard JT ending something.
Mhm.
No, I was just talking
Oh,
about the stream that comes through us when we play, and then
Oh,
and
yeah.
then we, the stream of ideas, and then we do something with those ideas. I was just talking about that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or those ideas do something with us.
Exactly. That's
Right.
exactly my point.
Yeah. So, I was just looking at some of the titles of some of your work. I Am a Man, really liked a lot of that, and Prototype and uh, Aramenta, really, really like that one. And then The Terror End of Beauty. I'm still kind of digesting that one. Yeah, yeah, they're all a lot, and then to do them all in one sitting or two sittings is okay. What can
A
you
lot.
say? Yeah, yeah, it is a lot. I didn't have to do it like that, but I kind of like being, oversaturated, sort of like swimming in it, it's kind of fun. Um,
Did you
so,
did you notice a line through?
hmm yeah, 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 I did. I can't articulate it yet, but yes, yes, I did.
We can't either. We can't articulate it either.
Yeah, yeah.
Melvin titled "The Terror End of Beauty." Am I correct, guys?
Well, it was one of those things where it was a misheard quote that actually was a better quote than the original.
Right.
Because it
Yeah,
speaks because it speaks to that thing of like, that sort of the same thing we were talking about earlier with you know, uh, uh, Miss Tubman having to carry a gun. It's like you get to that point of beauty where it scares you. And, it's that point of freedom where it's like, wow, I haven't really experienced this before. I don't know how I feel about it. So that's really what that's speaking to.
hmm Yeah, yeah. And freedom is something that, just in the creative process, we call that great black music. I think that's what you said, right,
Yeah,
Mr. Gibbs? Yeah. So the whole thing around interrogating freedom, um, in through your music, like when you get in, to your space together and you have time and you just see what comes, what comes through you.
yeah,
That's a demonstration of freedom or being free,
yeah,
not monitoring, not censoring, not having any expectations, just being present to whatever the flow is.
yeah.
And I guess that could be kind of terrorizing because it's not always
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah. Well, it's
Because
not
you
even that. I mean, the example that I always give when it comes to this is,
Mhm,
when people, for me, when we talk about free music called free jazz,
mhm,
for me, the music of free jazz signifies that point right when somebody's catching the Holy Ghost, right when you're making that conscious shift from
mhm,
the things you understand to something that you're not supposed to understand. You're just channeling. And
mhm,
that space in there, you have to let yourself, for the people who can step into that space, we step into it doing music. For
mhm,
people who step into that space with their minds, there's a point where they have to let go. And that, if that's the point where that moment, for some people that would be a terrifying moment.
mhm,
For the people who are used to embodying it, becomes a moment of beauty, of
mhm,
freedom. And that's exactly that's the metaphor I use. And when
mhm,
people hear free jazz, they're hearing that moment. And so some of them love it and some of them are terrified by it. But
mhm,
it's a part of a shift. And
mhm,
I think for the thing of what we do, again, of our generation, because the older generation, they brought in one level of information, and as the next generation, we process it in our own way. And I think for us, for me, and for the other guys in the band, it's really about, okay, how do we invoke that into the space? You know, 'cause in the 60s, it was about, okay, you have to make the space. But now I feel it's about, okay, how do we commune in that space? And I think that that's one of the things that Tubman adds to that heritage of music, that because we are the children of those guys and of those people, not just guys, the children of those creators,
Mm-hmm.
we're digesting it in another way. And hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
we're bringing a different another view to the music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, you know, Wanda, there was one of my early mentors and friends, the violinist Leroy Jenkins,
Mm.
who has stepped on to another level of experience. I was playing a show with him in Boston. It was early in my period in New York, early 80s, and there was a piece of music we were playing, and I was designated to have a solo in the piece. And it came up, and I was supposed to play, like, you know, basically two cycles through the form, and then it would move on. And so I got to like the end of the second cycle, and Leroy was hearing me and liked what I was doing, so he said, go ahead, keep going, go on. And you know, I wasn't mentally prepared to do that, and so I went. And it's a very common thing that happens in the music. You do something, and the older cats say, yeah, go ahead, young blood, go ahead, man, go on. And you're out there, and he kept me out there for like 3 or 4 more choruses, right? And after we finished, I came backstage and I said, boy, Leroy, you know, I wasn't ready for that. You had me out there. He said, no, Brandon, see, that's it, man. He said, you know, you got to get out beyond what you think you know. Otherwise, you ain't playing nothing. And that was really just truth speaking. It's like you can prepare in all kinds of ways, but it's not till you step out into that unknown, that great unknown. It's like catching a wave or catching an air current. Melvin's hung glide down in Brazil. It's like the thing has to take you, right? And you're not out of control, but you're not totally in control either. So you just navigate that terrain. I think for us in the band, some of our, in particular that record, Araminta, reflects a lot of that for me, a lot of that kind of interaction that happened on that record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Did you do you do your albums like in one take, like, or did you go back and record some more and then go back?
That record was done in at least on 2 different occasions, maybe 3, but not nothing overdubbed as far as I can recall. You know, those records were done. Those sessions were done live
at my house.
right.
I think we might have played a piece more than once and then chose which ones, you know, but I don't think we actually, that was about it.
There's no overdubs on
No.
overdubs is when you play something and then you fix it somehow. There's none of that on Araminta. The process for Terra N was a different kind of process. So where we are using the recording studio as a musical instrument.
Mm.
So
that's true.
But so there are a couple of things that were made that way, but yeah, in general, the music is kind of what we do because it's about the interaction, and it's just not. We don't, if the 3 of us aren't in a room, it's not the same energy, it's not the same thought process. So, it just, we have and can, actually that's not thinking about, there are a couple of small things on Araminta, but in general, we kind of do it the old school way. We get in the room, we play, and that's and if it's not working, then we just go on to the next thing, and we don't, we just sometimes, you don't always you don't always capture everything, so that's just how it is sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
The interesting thing also is once we come up with an idea and it's like okay, then we give it a title, then we have to play it again. So that magic, see, the challenge for us is to harness what magic made that idea magic. It was improvised, so when we write a set list and we have names for each of these ideas that came to us, that streamed to us, and the challenge now, it's a reverse challenge of like,
Yeah, reverse engineering.
Yeah, it's reverse engineered. Like, okay, we made this. This is improvised. Okay, what do we call it? Okay, we call it chocolate cake. Okay, we get to the gig next day. How do we play chocolate cake? And why does chocolate cake sound different than vanilla ice cream? And all of these ideas that we come up. So we're actually creating. I mean, there's another way of doing things, and I didn't notice it. I take it for granted when I play because we've been playing together for so long. But when other musicians are in our environment and they look around sometimes and go, well, what am I supposed to do? We just, how do I, navigate through this? Because you're not telling me what to do. That's the freedom of Harriet. I don't think in our 20 whatever years we've been together that we've ever told one of us what to do.
Hmm.
That's
no, not unless somebody asks.
Not unless somebody has to answer the door.
Yeah, I've asked a couple of times. I've been stumped by some things and asked them.
We talk about what to do, but we've never told each other what to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's two different things, and that's makes it so different.
So you brought in some collaborators over the years, and like Wadada Leo Smith, and I was just wondering how yeah, I mean, since there is like you don't tell people, your collaborators or yourselves what to do, is it the same process? You just like, does one person start playing? I mean, how do you do it?
Good
Well,
Yeah. That's how we do it. I mean,
good question.
I mean, when we're playing with other musicians who are from the same thought school, we just do what we do. We just play. And the same thing, we'll have a conversation. We might have a conversation, over lunch, or a conversation when we're setting up, and that'll set the tone, and we just jump in and we start playing. If we're playing with someone who's from, a more sort of tradition where stuff needs to be constructed ahead of time, like a vocalist or whatever, then, we'll go over the material. But when we play it, we're gonna just play the way we play. And, so in that sense, yes, there's a prior form, but the execution still has the sort of vibration that we bring to when we're just creating without the form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And each one of your voices is articulated differently because of the instrument that you sing through. And I was just wondering, was that a consideration when you all decided, to create Harriet Tubman? Was it that, that Mr. Lewis, is percussionist, and, Mr. Gibbs, you are, a bassist, and Mr. Ross, you're a guitarist. I mean, was that the reason, that, I mean, like, this was, this was how you wanted to, your articulation was what it is, or it just so happened because you all chose each other intentionally. It wasn't like, like just grabbing people arbitrarily. It was an intention. And even when you have collaborators, there's an intention, like it's specific. It's not just, oh, so just learning about the specificity of who you are and what you bring, the sonic part of it.
Well, for me, trios is always intriguing to me, or even like a lead instrument and a trio rhythm section. So I grew up playing in trios, and trios and quartets where if in a trio, if one side collapses, you ain't got, it's a triangle, and it creates more space for you to express yourself because it's only the three of y'all. You know what I mean? And that always intrigued me since when I was a kid listening to Elvin and them, and Ginger Baker, and just the trio that created this huge sound, by themselves. And one side can't collapse. You can't hide in the trio. There's no hiding, And I was always intrigued with that, and cats that can create sound, like create a sound, an organic sound, within three, Jimmy did it for me too, they had this, it wasn't them. When you hear the three of them play, it's not them, it's something else. It's this big thing. And I've always dreamt about that kind of thing.
Jimi
Hendrix.
You mentioned, okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. Okay.
Well, for me, it's playing with another string, and especially playing with another string player who's in a different range. It allows it to be more orchestral, as opposed to like if I'm playing with an instrument that's from another instrument family. If I'm playing with a keyboard instrument, or I'm playing with a horn, then it becomes okay. Now everybody has a role. But when it's two instruments from the same family that have ranges that don't overlap, you can make the colors. You can get a lot more color, a lot more interesting colors. Like if you hear, like, yes, you get interesting colors if you have a trio that's, let's say, drums, bass, and sax, but it's not gonna morph the way you can morph if you have two instruments. Like if you have the two string instruments, a lot more can happen just sonically over the course of an hour than if, and often with keyboard players, because a piano is a mini orchestra, it often becomes that the possibilities for interaction lessen because the one instrument becomes so dominant. But where with the two strings and the African American drums that have this kind of interesting kind of harmonic information that they give off that simultaneously adds and sort of intervenes within what we're doing. I just think it's a really interesting color. The piano trio is like the traditional sound of jazz, but as far as what I think is a more interesting sound in a room, I think that if you have, two string players and, African American percussion, I think it's a sound that you get a lot more colors out of than most other colors.
I was thinking about just now, we did a few shows with David Murray a while back, and gosh, about 10 years ago now, maybe more. And he was doing a project with the Last Poets, and asked us if we would play. And I remember at the rehearsal we had in New York City, at the time, we were talking about how we would present stuff, and he said, well, you all sound like a dang orchestra, the three of us playing. And someone else said that recently as well. And I think I've thought about that a lot. And I think it has something to do with, while it is very true what Melvin is saying, and there's other combinations that have that capacity as well, then it gets into the kind of sensibility and personality of the players. And I think that's, I know for me, that was a serious consideration, but not a lengthy one, when JT asked me if I knew any bass players. And I said, well, yeah, do you know Melvin Gibbs? And this is about what, it's also kind of like the way a person thinks about the instrument they're playing. If they're thinking about their instrument and this is the role I play and this is what a bass player has to do, you'll get those results. I mean, last year we had to play a show without Melvin. Something came up and it was last minute. We were on our way to Boston, and we contacted a good friend of ours, Terry Lynn Carrington, the drummer, and said, hey, Terry, do you know, are there any bass players you would recommend for us? Melvin can't make this show. And we're on trains. I mean, JT was on one train, I was on another train, and we're texting and talking, and she gave us the name of a bass player who came down. Very nice guy, really, really, very good musician, very respectful, but he stepped into our world and was like holding on for dear life. And it was surprising and interesting to me because, as JT said, I think we do take our system of creation and performance and information very much for granted. And this person came into it, and he was just kind of like, what do I do? And where is this? And how does this go? And I remember at one point we were playing something that was essentially a blues, but it didn't have anything to do with the standard harmonic blues changes, because that's not what the blues is. That's just another form that it moves through. And we were playing this thing, I was playing it, and he kept wanting to move it and force it into this particular frame. And I remember walking across the stage and smiling so that people wouldn't think I was yelling at them, and saying, just stay right there. Nothing has to happen. Just let it take you. And I have this big smile on my face, and I go back and we finish the piece, and he comes over to me and he says, we're just still on stage. He goes, Brandon, dang, man, you guys are bad MFs. This is, wow. And I said, so are you. It's just, we're looking at things through this lens, through this perspective, through this dimension. And he was, afterwards, he couldn't stop saying how much he appreciated the lesson that he got that day, even though we paid him for the lesson. But he still registered as the fact that it was a lesson. And it was a big lesson for me, recognizing how much the information that we've had access to, Melvin, JT, and I, and then being situated in New York City among the players that we've come up through, how advanced it is.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what we're dealing with. We're like, JT will often say, I got my postgraduate degree in like Henry Threadgill's band, and my graduate degree in down Pullen, and all the other projects out there like that. And it's very true. And once we get into these settings that are more, let's say, institutionalized or structured around a particular view and period of what the music is about, we realize very quickly that we're operating on another level of information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
Postdoc.
Right. Yeah.
And it's funny. I was talking. I think I was talking to you and Melvin and Brandon yesterday or the day before, and I have a student that, he listened to one of our CDs, And I mean, he's you know, he plays in church, and he's really good. And then he said, "Oh shit, Mister, this is okay." He said, "Oh bleep, Mr. Lewis, this is some black future bleep." You know, and you know, there's been an issue of trying to like really put a you know, a name to what we do, and you know, I've become kind of happy with that, that it can't be named, you know, it'll probably be named after I'm well gone, you know. But yeah, my student, he's like 18 years old, and he said that, he goes, "This is some black future bleep," you know. And I'm like, "Oh, well, maybe that's what it is, you know." Anyway, that's all I have to say. I love you guys.
I mean, it's funny for me because you know this whole this Afrofuturism thing. I'm like, I think when I hear that, I hear, going back to the metaphor of Tubman. I mean, the people who weren't free, the freedom seemed like someplace in the future, but it's now. When you're with her. So that's kind of how I look at it when people, this idea. It's like it's the now. Is whatever your idea of the future is. It's they're
Now.
living it.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like what I hear in that is more like, okay, it's more like the question of, okay, what is this moment really, as opposed to what you think this moment's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you all too long. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about next week when you're coming to Oakland to bless us, with your healing vibrations, and stir us up, as only good creativity can do. Like, you'll be with us long after you have sailed on to your next thing. And we'll be talking about that experience, because it'll be one of those kind of things. Like, if you weren't in the space, you really missed it. Because, we can listen to your recordings, but to be in the space, where it's happening, that's really a transformative moment that can't be recreated, I'm sure. So I don't know how long it's been since you all have performed together. I know you haven't been here in a while, but I don't know if you're like performing regularly together in other spaces, other places. I looked at your website and couldn't quite see where
Did you
you've been prior to this
did
Oakland.
did you blow the dust? Did you blow the dust off at the website? It's all the social and online stuff is a whole other job, actually, that it's hard to keep track of. It doesn't really reflect the range of our activity, but yeah. I mean, I think the last thing we did publicly was for the Long Play Festival in New York City last May.
Yeah.
And we played a show there, produced by the Bang on a Can organization in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Last May being May 2023, right?
Yeah, May 23,
Okay.
2023.
2 months ago.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, what are you planning for? I know plan is like a loose term. I'm talking.
Yeah.
You all don't plan, which is what's so cool about it, because you all are free, literally. So if people want to see some free people, definitely need to be in the house. Free people, sharing, their vocabulary with others. Maybe we might be able to pick up a little bit of that freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you planning?
Well,
you're gonna pull from your repertoire or do something totally different? Like, you have any idea that you can share with us presently?
Actually, it'll tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we will hit stuff from the repertoire, and we will create new stuff as well.
Oh, nice,
And,
nice.
So that's what happens. I mean, we give for the people who've supported what we've done, they'll hear stuff that they'll hear stuff that they like, they'll hear stuff that they recognize, and and they'll hear stuff that they don't recognize. And for the people who haven't supported us before, they'll hear a whole bunch of stuff that'll be new for them. So it's we try to keep it new for everybody.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
it's
You know,
great to come
you know,
back.
Wanda, a friend of mine works at a jazz club here in New York City, and we were talking about music and the kind of music that gets booked into this club. It's a very famous club. And they said, well, you know, people come and they you know, it's like they want to hear something familiar, you know, that they, and I said, well, they should probably stay home in their sweatpants and put on their records, and the drinks will cost much less and they'll be really comfortable. You know, if they're going to come and hear what the artists are up to, what they're doing, you have to allow for the moment, that thing that is fresh, you know, that you haven't heard yet. So yeah, Melvin's right. We'll hit some stuff from the repertoire or use the repertoire to jump off into some other things. But I think the term is fresh. And I think we were talking about that the other day, but that things have a freshness to them, rather than being, you know, like a couple of days old or past the expiration date, you know, or some of those foods where, you know, you have a cherry sandwich and no cherries were injured during the making of this product. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we're not serving that up.
But, you know,
Yeah. But I think you hit on something interesting.
Oh, shit.
What did you say, Jay?
I'm just saying, coming back to Oakland, I'm like, Oakland means a lot to me. You know, the music that came out of Oakland when I was growing up. You know, not only that, but it all started in Oakland. You know what I mean? It started there. You know, and I mean, it always has a place in my heart. You know, and you know, the Bay Area music, but not only that, the politics. You know, and the activism that came out of there is sacred to me. So you know, anytime, you know, anytime I go through that area, I feel, you know, I have great feelings for that place. You know.
Yeah, one of those stops on the Underground Railroad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
one of those portals. Yeah, Black Power movement. You know, Black Panther Party, History Month is this
Yeah.
month.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
What were you gonna say, Melvin? You were gonna say it looked like it was good. Something you were gonna say.
I don't even remember anymore now.
Oh.
Maybe it'll come back to me, maybe it won't. Yeah,
Melvin's
I
writing a book if he hadn't said so. Melvin's writing a book if he hasn't said so already.
Oh, super. What is
Yeah.
the book?
The Science of Black Music is what it's called.
Oh,
And talking about the two big buckets right now are geometry of rhythm and black music as an evolutionary process. Black music in the West as an evolutionary process.
wow.
So
How close are you to being finished?
I'm about half done now, you know, so I need to get the other half done. Because, you know, we'll see. I mean, my editor is being very patient, but I have a feeling patience will run out. And I want to, you know, but yeah, it's coming along. I mean, it's one of those things. Once you jump in, then it becomes a question of, okay, what are you going to keep? What are you going to, you know, what, you know, and then it becomes the initial question. I mean, for me, it's part of it is really kind of just accepting the fact that certain things, for things to be respected, they have to be codified in a certain kind of way. You know, I mean, from guys, you know, a lot of our mentors made a point of keeping the information within a small group of people. So I kind of, even before I started writing the book, I kind of had to struggle with that. And well, struggle is not the right word, but the things that I'm sharing are things that I think that are things that are obvious to musicians, especially black musicians in particular, that I think that reflect a lot of insight that is not in the culture. And I feel that the culture needs to understand that that insight has always been there, and it's not just the, like they do in basketball, and they'll say the basketball player had a whole bunch of talent, and and then they'll pick the white basketball player and they'll talk about how he's so hardworking and he's got fundamentals and all of this, and it's like, we got fundamentals too. We just don't talk about it the same way y'all do. So it's kind of that's kind of the so that's kind of in the spirit of what I'm sharing is in that spirit.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking when you were talking about sort of what to keep and what to make public, I was thinking about our rituals and how when you share your rituals, there's a chance that they can be contaminated. Or exploited, and or appropriated to where
Yes.
that was my ritual, and it's like you can buy it over there. It's like, yeah. So
or some semblance of it, they recreate the shape of it, but not the essence.
Well, that's what I mean, and that's been the thing for African American music in particular, right? I mean, minstrelsy, they basically just, okay, this is what Black people are now, and they just kind of recreated our whole presence and formed it, and that's not, then there's, and that becomes the thing that becomes the idea of what creativity is. So it's a sort of a multivalent thing that we have to deal with as creators. I mean, and yeah, you can say that minstrelsy was a long time ago, but then you look and it's not. You see people doing it every day, and you see the things that get put into the culture, that get accepted into the culture, that are accepted in the culture because the seed was planted 150 years ago, and we're still dealing with it. So that is the counterpoint for me to the idea of all the things that the older cats taught us that they didn't necessarily teach to other people. And it's not like I'm giving away any secrets. It's
but that's a great thing to say, because that means they trusted us. When we got to them, they said, okay,
we'll show
these guys,
you this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll show I'll show you. When I got there, cats were like, they were giving up the information, and that's a great honor that all of us have been around these cats that were holding on to that information, and and they shared it with us, and we're carrying that torch now in what we do. What we do. You know what I mean?
And and a lot of it was not explicit. A lot of it was implicit. Some of the most important things. Like it might be like you have to just pay attention. You have to pay attention and watch and glean and really tune in. And it could be as simple as, watching the way somebody puts the reed on their mouthpiece, or what they do first, or what their little warm thing is, or why is that, or what are you doing? And I know sometimes somebody would say to me, what is that exercise you do? What is that? This doesn't sound like, and I was with another colleague of ours, Anthony Cox, great bassist from Minneapolis. And Anthony jumped in to his colleague and explained to him what it was about, because he didn't perceive the value of what it was.
Yeah.
And it's those kind of things, that was the kind of, mentoring or mentorship or, transmission of this kind of these codes and this information. And it's a way of going about something. It's not just the form that it appears to be. And it's a very interesting process to become aware of. And I see that, I teach different people here and there, younger people, older people, and it's really interesting to see what somebody thinks something is about, or what their idea is of what's happening. And as another mentor colleague of ours just said once, you can't really teach anybody anything. you could just set up the conditions for them to be able to reach out and, get what they can get out of it. And you got two people in the same room with the same person, and one person is just like absorbing everything like a sponge, and the other one's like, yeah, that's cool, but I think I'm gonna go over here and do that over there. And the first person who's absorbing is like, really, man? What really? It's like, okay, cool, and that wasn't for them at that time, or maybe not at all. I think that, the Black American experience in terms of the mentoring and the systems for organization, that level of it, some people might call it intuitive, but I think it's certainly that's a part of it, but it's more like a level of meta information community that we tune into. I know we do that in Harriet Tubman all the time. In fact, I think that was the space that we recognized when we first started playing, because we just started playing, and there it was, the organization of the music, the way things could move, there was really no discussion. And as JT was saying, it's like that we just went back in and reverse engineered.
The information that the mentor gave us, the information that the mentors gave us, and we ran with it. But the other thing is, there's still an underground railroad of information that only certain circles really know what's going on. There is still an underground railroad of information in the way things are done musically in African American, there's still certain lines of communication. You come from this, it's very interesting. The lineage, you play with this person, but okay, so that information is coming from here. You play with this person, and that information is coming from there. You know what I mean? You're in the line. There's lines of information of the real way things are done. And you're blessed to be in one of those lines. You know what I mean? So when I got to Don, when I got to Henry, you know what I'm saying though? And then
that's well put. I was going to say.
Yeah. You would get information, and me and Melvin played with the Bowie family in the 80s. And you talk about these lines of like serious information. You know what I mean? And it affects, this is who you become, this, and
yeah.
I remember when Lester, I was playing with Don in Italy somewhere. We were playing, and Lester was there, right? Lester, they played, and then we were at the, eating after the concert, and he comes up to me and he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm playing with Don. No, he said, that's not what I asked you. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I didn't ask you what you were doing. I asked you what you were doing. And that's when, that's when I started, thinking about us and, doing something. But that line of information comes from like very close circle of sources that actually converge into, a huge, so we're privileged to be part of that lineage,
Yeah, I wanted to kind of vector off from what Brandon was talking to kind of bring it back to the listeners, because Brandon's talking about, methods of observation. And that also goes for the people who are listening to the music. I mean, Brandon talks about the idea, talking about the idea of why people come to a jazz club. I mean, yeah, one set of people is coming for some sort of like specific experience of jazz. But the set of people that I came with went to a jazz club. The jazz club was a vehicle for like participating in a community, or any musical situation. When you get a bunch of people in a room, it's not just about the musicians, it's about everybody in the room communing together. And the jazz club is kind of a crossover, a place where those two ways of thinking meet. But for me, for how I look at it, the tradition I'm coming from, it's really about, okay, what's happening in the room, what's in the community. To your point of, if you weren't there, yeah, the record is great. The record is one kind of document that exists as a document. But as performers, from if we're honoring what the ancestors have given us, it's really about being in the room. Yeah. So the people who are clued into that will get a different experience out of the music.
Yeah, I think one of you all said something about transmission, and I'm thinking Star Trek, like where the beam comes in and the stuff happens and you're transported. And so if you don't get right there in the light, you look up and you're still there. Like, oh man, where'd everybody go? So you want to be like in the right space, so the light hits you, the energy hits you, so you can be transported. Because it's always good wherever you're going. It's like, because it's love, it's good energy. So it's like you want to go. You don't want to be left there like, oh man, nobody in the room but me. Like, oh shoot, missed it. Darn.
That's true. You got two Star Trek fans on the line too, JT and me.
Yeah. So, wow, this has been such an enlightening conversation. So, anything else? I was gonna play something from which one of these? I was gonna play I think it was Black Fractals.
Fractal.
Fractal, because I like the name. and then I was gonna play Nina Simone. And because I love Nina Simone. I was like, oh, they got one from Nina Simone. And I would like to play Aminata, but I don't think I have that one. But if I could cue that up, I'm not sure. But I definitely have the other two. So you don't have to stick around for that. I was going to play that and then make the announcement again. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to, have some closing comments, so to speak.
Well,
sure.
I mean, for me, JT already touched on it. We're talking about the lineage of Oakland and how important it is to be there, and how we're honored. I don't know if honored is the correct word, but or blessing, or whatever word that's similar to that whatever is allowing us to be in that space, we're happy to have the opportunity to do so, and hopefully, absorb some of the energy and bring it to the people.
Yeah. I'd like to, I'd like to see us just connect with more people like this too. In terms of whether it's, a workshop or an interview like this, or, exchange and discourse in a way, because I think that's my personal opinion, that what we're talking about is not, it's very accessible, and what we're playing is very accessible. And it's been also our experience that we go to a place sometimes and people someone created a quote about our band once. They were trying to describe the band and the music, and they said this, and I think it's just, I think it's actually very accurate. And she said, sometimes you don't know you're thirsty until somebody gives you a cup of water. That's Harriet Tubman.
Nice. That's very nice. Yeah. Cool. Well, safe travels, because none of you all are in California.
Thank you.
and Mr. Gibbs, you're in Europe, so safe travels back wherever home is, and then here. And look forward to seeing you all next week. It's going to be really awesome. And This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for your generosity. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Looking
Thank
forward
you,
to
Wanda.
You're quite welcome.
Have a great evening.
Okay, you too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
You too. So I am going to play a little music so you can hear for yourself. We're going to play Black Fractal. This is Nina Simone, and that was Lacto Fracto, and both are on Harriet Tubman's Araminta. You're listening to Harriet Tubman, the band featuring guitarist Brandon Ross, drummer J.T. Lewis, and bassist Melvin Gibbs, and they'll be performing at Yoshi's on Thursday, October 26, 2023, their first appearance in the Bay Area since January 2020 at SFJAZZ. Deeply inspired by the ideals of freedom, the All-Star Band was formed in 1998 and named after heroic abolitionists and social activists who escaped from enslavement and slavery, the institution, and risked her life to help many others do the same. So again, Harriet Tubman is going to be at Yoshi's on Thursday, October 26th. Make sure you get your tickets. You don't want to miss this experience. Your cool glass of water. And we are listening to Nina Simone on Harriet Tubman's recording Aramenta. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Wanda's Picks. Be well.